When the Oklahoma City Thunder completed their recent first-round sweep of the New Orleans Pelicans, they became the youngest team in NBA history to win a playoff series. But it's worth noting that before the 2024 season, the last time OKC swept a playoff series was against the Dallas Mavericks back in the first round of the 2012 postseason during the Durant, Westbrook, and Harden era. And most notably, that same season, the young Thunder reached the NBA Finals in a run which most people considered to be at least 1 year ahead of schedule, which coincidentally is exactly just how this 2024 Thunder team was viewed prior to the start of the season. So by all indications, this current OKC team is ready to win now. Headlined by an incredibly young starting five that boasts an average age of just 23.2 years old, this Thunder team held the Pelicans to just 93.5 points per 100 possessions in 4 games during the first round, which is the lowest offensive rating ever produced by a playoff team since the 2016 postseason. But now, moving on to the second round, the question for OKC is, can they at least come close to doing that against a Dallas Mavericks team that features 2 of the best shot creators in basketball in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, who each average at least 25 points per game during their recently concluded first-round series against the Clippers? Well, entering this second-round matchup, OKC obviously comes in as the number 1 seeded team, who's consistently boasted top 5 marks both offensively and defensively all season long, while the Dallas Mavericks are coming in as a 5th seeded team that's had to endure a roller coaster regular season. But as a Thunder fan myself, I would have to admit that the gap between these two teams is not as big as the team standings suggest. Well, OKC won the season series against Dallas 3-1, but to be fair, those 4 games they played in the regular season actually offer very little in terms of analytical sample size, considering only one of those games featured both Doncic and Kyrie Irving in the Mavs lineup, while during the last one of those 4 games, Dallas actually rested most of their starting lineup after they've already locked up the 5th seed in the Western Conference. We also gotta remember that the Mavs actually remade their team at the trade deadline by picking up starters Daigneault, Gafford, and PJ Washington, and since the deadline, both OKC and Dallas actually produced a 22-9 win-loss record, which is the second best record in the NBA within that span of time, only behind that of the Boston Celtics. Overall, Dallas versus OKC should be as exciting of a series as a 1 versus 5 matchup can be. But still, there are obvious reasons as to why the Thunder entered this series as -22 favorites to win and to move on to the conference finals. So what's good everyone, it's Real Balls here and we'll talk about all those reasons in this video. Let's get to it. Entering the postseason, a lot of analysts expected the relatively smaller OKC Thunder to have their hands full while containing a Pelicans team that featured a strong post-up big in Jonas Valanciunas, as well as a couple of 3-level scoring threats in Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum. However, in round number 1, among all 16 playoff teams, the Pelicans ranked dead last in field goal percentage in the paint and second to last in effective field goal percentage from outside the painted area. Well, OKC already had the NBA's 4th best defense during the regular season, and as shown by the numbers, they've upped their defensive intensity even more in the playoffs while shutting the Pelicans down from all areas of the floor. Although now in the second round, the Dallas Mavericks, who have 2 of the best offensive players in the NBA, will surely present a tougher challenge for OKC's defense. And of course, trying to slow down the Mavs offense starts with trying to slow down Luka Doncic. Well, Doncic actually cooked OKC in the 2 games he played against them this season by averaging 34 points on 56% shooting from the field, and with his offensive talents, Luka will continue to get buckets against OKC regardless. However, one thing that OKC will be capable of doing is trying to mix the matchups they throw against Doncic while not allowing him the time to work out on how to exploit every single one of those matchups. And OKC can do this because they simply have a lot of options to throw at Luka. Obviously, OKC's best perimeter defender, Lu Dort, will be their primary option from the point of attack. But while Dort has had some success guarding Luka in terms of denying him the ball, ultimately, Dort's lack of size still doesn't really help him limit Luka's scoring, especially in the paint, as during the regular season, Luka still shot an efficient 57% from the field in 62 partial possessions with Dort as his primary defender. Still, you can expect Lu Dort to make Luka Doncic work for every bucket, and again, OKC has other options. Although he didn't guard Luka that much during the regular season, J-Dub is a little bit bigger than Dort, and his 7'2" wingspan and quick feet should also allow him to match Luka Doncic stride for stride. The Thunder also have a few other wing-sized defenders in Kenrich Williams and Aaron Wiggins, who are both 6'6" with long arms, who both can match up against Luka in stretches. But ultimately, I think OKC's wildcard defender actually might be rookie Cason Wallace, who using his quick hands, sound balance, and quick twitch movements has actually been the most successful among OKC's roster in terms of guarding Luka, as during the regular season, in 24.2 partial possessions guarding him, Wallace has limited Doncic to just 37.5% shooting from the field and just 33% shooting from deep. But then, if OKC can't stop Luka, they have to at least slow down Kyrie Irving, who in 2 games against the Thunder this season has put up 30.5 points on 62% shooting from the field. Well, a combination of Dort, J-Dub, Cason Wallace, and a little bit of Shai will likely draw most of the defensive assignments versus Kyrie in this series. And I think if those guys are able to stay disciplined and are able to limit Kyrie from getting easy points at the rim or at the free throw line, and if they're able to limit his efficiency while forcing him to become a high-volume scorer, the higher the chances that OKC will be able to neutralize the Mavs' offensive attack. But aside from having the task of slowing down Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, the Thunder will also have to limit the ability of the Mavs' big man to dominate games as lob threats at the rim. Both Daigneault, Gafford, and Dereck Lively are textbook rim-running centers with enough speed, bounce, and athleticism to thrive as finishers in the pick and roll. And if the Thunder can't limit both guys' touches in the paint, expect Dallas to spam OKC with Doncic and Irving pick and rolls until OKC is forced to make a counter. However, for Dallas, that's gonna be easier said than done, as the Thunder have an incredible safety blanket in Chet Holmgren, who's actually averaging the most blocks by any player in this year's playoffs. He should be able to limit the Mavs' interior scoring. And sure, OKC doesn't have much interior size outside of Chet, but the Thunder are still able to limit teams from getting into the paint by sporting a roster that has a lot of length at every position, that's capable of getting tons of steals and forcing a lot of turnovers. OKC actually ranked first in steals per game and second in deflections per game during the regular season, and in the first round, they also forced the Pelicans to commit the highest turnover rate by any team in the playoffs. So if there's a team that can disrupt and limit the effectiveness of the Mavs' Luka and Kyrie centered pick and rolls and ball screen plays, it's definitely this OKC team with their elite defense. Well, again, how to consistently stop Luka and Kyrie from getting to their spots will be a dilemma for OKC entering this series, but a similar question also applies to the Mavs because of the fact that the Thunder doesn't lack offensive star power either. Using a lethal drive-and-kick game centered around the consistent downhill attack of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams, while also playing an unpredictable 5-out offense which is fueled by Chet Holmgren's ability to space the floor as a 7-footer, the Thunder were able to produce the 3rd best offense in the NBA during the regular season, and using that same type of offensive attack, they were able to win 4 straight games against a top 6 defensive team like the Pelicans by an average margin of almost 16 points per game in the first round. And although the Mavs haven't been as consistently good on defense this season as the Pelicans, they actually improved drastically on that end of the floor, especially after acquiring PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford at the trade deadline. In fact, in the first round, Dallas was able to limit the offensive powerhouse LA Clippers to fewer than 95 points on 3 different occasions. But still, at the end of the day, I think OKC just has too many counters against the Mavs' ball pressure-based defensive attack. As we've seen in the regular season, Jason Kidd often utilized the size and athleticism of his big man by asking them to blitz opposing ball handlers. But the thing is, Shai typically picks these types of coverages apart way too easily by simply passing the ball off to Jalen Williams or Chet Holmgren and letting them take advantage of 4-on-3 situations. Well, Dallas have also played more traditional drop coverages to keep their big man near the basket, where Lively and Gafford can affect the game with their size and length. This has worked to some degree for Dallas, but still, against the drop coverage, either Shai or J-Dub can simply take 2 dribbles and launch a mid-range jumper. But the other counter to the Mavs' big lineup, which will also most likely be the most difficult to deal with for them, actually involves Chet Holmgren popping or flaring out to the 3-point line. Chet's ability to space the floor for OKC poses a ton of questions for the Mavs' defense, as Lively and Gafford can follow Chet out on the perimeter, but that would leave a ton of open interior space for OKC's cutters like Josh Giddey and Lu Dort to exploit. Well, sure, the Mavs were able to neutralize the offensive production of the Clippers, which featured a traditional big man in Ivica Zubac, but they're gonna have a hard time doing that against a real stretch big man like Chet Holmgren, who can also put the ball on the floor and pick his defender apart off the dribble. It's just that we've never seen the Mavs play in a true 5-out matchup the way they're gonna have to do against OKC, and you can expect the Thunder's floor spacing bigs to pull Lively and Gafford away from the rim all series. Well, even Josh Giddey, who the Mavs ignored from behind the arc during the regular season, has flipped the switch since then and has become a more confident three-point shooter towards the end stretch of the season. And against the Pelicans in round 1, Giddey even shot 50% from 3 on almost 5 attempts per game. And if he keeps up his hot shooting, Giddey will be an X-factor for OKC in this series. Well, one solution that Jason Kidd could employ to keep up against the Thunder's 5-out offense is to downsize at the center spot with Maxi Kleber, who's both a capable rim protector and knockdown shooter. But the problem is, Kleber is out with injury and will most likely miss the remainder of the playoffs. Either way, I think we could expect a lot of brilliant moments from Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving against OKC. As playoff veterans, I don't think the pressure will affect either of them. But the only question is, will they be able to maintain an elite standard of play for an entire 7-game series? Well, I just think that's gonna be hard to do against this OKC team that's elite on both ends of the floor, and that's proven that they can play fast or slow and that they can play big or small. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been a cheat code himself on both ends of the floor this season, and with a healthy supporting cast that fits almost perfectly, I'm picking the Thunder to win this series in 6 games. So thank you guys if you've actually made it this far into the video, and please feel free to drop your predictions on the Thunder vs Mavs series on the comment section below. Again, this is Real Balls, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.